Hello, Alex. How are you?
Hi, great, thanks. Nice to be here. Not flattered anyone's interested.
How are you coping with lockdown?
How am I coping with it? To be honest with you, uh, I'm not one. I'm not given to collapsing in a fit of depression, but I have found this really trying.
Oh, really?
Honestly, I was touring this show as Clinton Baptise, which is this character I played on Phoenix Nights, and I feel a bit like. Well, also, I say this is a privilege to be able to talk about this. There's so many
Yeah.
people who have to pay for this kind of therapy, you know. But I was touring as Clinton Baptiste, and after years and years and years of knocking on the door and trying things and having pilots, I've had endless pilots on TV and radio that have kind of come and gone. For the first time ever, I was touring a solo show, and we were selling out all over the place, and we'd sold 76% of the tickets over a 6-month period. Right. And apart from anything, for once I was going to earn some money. Not megabucks, but, it would have sorted me out, us out, my family and me. And I was thinking, we had probably done about half the tour. And I was thinking that the only thing that was really going to stop me was losing my voice, which I've had on stage before, which is a disaster because try as you might, you can't force it, or there'd be some disaster at home and I'd just have to stop. The one thing I didn't foresee was a worldwide pandemic, and even when it happened, like lots of people, I was thinking, they remember that the start, they were talking about 3 weeks, or they have to have 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
And people go, it won't be 3 weeks, it'll be longer. And here we are now, 4 months in. And so for a long time, I was kind of licking my wounds about it, and I couldn't quite believe my bad luck. So I do have times, industry, job, career aside, where I get very worried that this is just the end of the wedge. And I'm sure a lot of people have this feeling that I don't really, I really worry about society if we live in that, uses terms like social distancing. What a horrible phrase.
Yeah.
Social distancing. I mean, it's kind of terrifying for my kids. And that sort of worries me. I'm very worried about these constant. I'll finish talking in a minute. These constant, warnings about, the environment's the new one that's been neglected over this period. The economy. I'm worried about my children. So I do have sort of fits of mild panic about where we're heading. And also, if the tour sort of never happens again, which fingers crossed, it's going to happen. We'll pick up the old dates, and I've been writing a new tour. Then maybe things will get back a little bit normal for me. But I've not dealt with it as I thought I would. I thought I'd be much more sanguine about it, but I'm do have moments like lots of people. I think sometimes you're right, other times you think this is unbelievable, So,
but I think you're allowed to feel like that when something like that has happened. I think everyone's allowed to feel a bit scared and a bit confused.
Yeah.
Like you say with social distancing, is like the phrase that I hate hearing is new normal.
Yeah, I mean that's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want that to be the new normal. And you sort of think, look, I'm not comparing this with being bombed out in the Second World War, but at least in the Second World War you could get hold of each other and link arms and dance in the street. This is a very horrible, pernicious. When you see people out and about carrying as normal with those masks and avoiding each other, and it's a horrible way to live. And I think I'm still relatively fit and healthy, but I always think I'm stating the bleeding obvious here, but like people like my mum, who I have to look after, who's very old. You might well think, I don't want to live like this. The last few years of their lives. Do you really? It's just such a terrible, terrible way for it to end. And the kid's not going around to see her for a long time. We sort of sneak in now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible, horrible situation, and I just, as you said, a new normal. I hope this ain't the new normal. No. I hope there's a way around this.
With the tour being cancelled, it seems like you and Dan Skinner have been able to do the Zoom shows, and you're making something out of it.
Yeah, we do. Let me show you this. 1 second. We do this. we do this. The Nunite show. You can't even see it 'cause it's too bright out there. From my daughter's bedroom here, we do a Zoom show. Dan in his house, me here as Barry and Angelos, and it's great fun. So we try very hard with that, and we have my agent who acts as a producer and another producer, and they're sort of pushing all the buttons. So they play in stings and they bring in, other guests, and there's a poll for our talent contest, which is great fun. But I don't really like working from home very much. Yeah. I've got a wife and kids and a dog that comes in. And if you could see this, it's a bit of a mess in here. I've got an office which has got Barry's prosthetics in it and my tax stuff. My wife's a school teacher. There's books everywhere. It's not really conducive to working. And for some people who have to go to shitty jobs, they might like to stay at home. But I do like the thing of going out to work and then turning around and coming home and having your solace at home.
Yeah. I suppose that having a live audience is completely different as well, isn't it?
There's no comparison with me standing in this bedroom on a Thursday night saying to my wife and the kids, can you shut up, please? Can you turn your Wi-Fi off so I can come in here, prance around for half an hour? And then when it finishes, I turn it off and go, right, I'll go down and watch telly, and sort of standing in the wings and hearing the audience. I mean, anyone listening to this think, oh, God, what a lovey. But, that adrenaline, and you hear the audience coming in and you're peeking out, and it's sort of swelling, and the nervousness and the, can we have you on stage in 5 minutes? That's kind of the thrill of it. The rest of it, I mean, really, it's not that thrilling to go ping and hello through this tiny little camera. So, I mean, it's like Gary Lineker, when he gave up playing professional football, he didn't want to go into management or any of that stuff. What's the one thing he wanted to do was live TV, because you still get that sense of adrenaline. And I can really, I understand that. That's what you live for, not really, being clever enough to put this online. And sit in your daughter's bedroom surrounded by her teddies, it's not quite the same thing.
So you were touring as Clinton Baptise, which obviously a lot of people will know from Phoenix Nights.
Yeah.
Is that a character you were doing before Phoenix Nights, or is that something Peter came up with? I
did a show at Edinburgh Festival in 1998 when I was 30, before you were born. And Peter Kay came along with bomber Pat Roach from Auf Wiedersehen Pet to review it. And it was a show about British wrestling. So Peter came along to sit. Cut long story short, we sort of hit it off, knocked about at Edinburgh Festival for a bit. And then what did he do? Put me in that Peter Kay thing, playing a character in the bingo hall. And then he phoned me up one day and said, have I got a part for you? And it was Clinton Baptise. And so it was only, one episode. And it was just such a lovely, larger-than-life, ludicrous character with long blonde hair. And so it was entirely Peter's. And Neil Fitzmaurice, I think, came up with the name. And sort of between all those guys, they wrote it. And I'm delighted to say that Peter has supported me doing this stand-up stuff. And whenever I recently did some stuff on 5 Live, and I've done bits on Radio X with Chris Moyles. And whenever I'm offered stuff, I always pass it by Peter. Just, it's sort of his creation, and I think it's his production company has a copyright. But bless him, he's just been nothing but great. And he says, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and do it. I hope it doesn't ever stop me, because I'm sort of relying on it a bit. So it's entirely Peter's and Neil's and Dave's.
Was it last year or the year before you did Cheap, Cheap, Cheap as Barry with Noel Edmands?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, you know what? It had some terrible moments in it. Some of it was so terrible. And I was embarrassed when some of the earlier episodes. But I maintain it got better as it went on. And that's just to be expected. And, there was a thing in Britain where you sort of had the right to fail, where you had one go. I mean, famously, was it Blackadder was nearly axed?
Yeah.
what was the other one? Was Dad's Army nearly axed? There's a few of them. Porridge, I can't remember, but certainly Blackadder nearly went.
I think the Office was like one of the worst rated pilots.
Yeah,
the BBC.
yeah, that's right. And I think, you have to just kind of chucking the stuff at the wall endlessly. Go, no, fuck it, forget it. It didn't work. We've got to move on.
Yeah.
I don't think that really helps anyone. And I think if it had gone out at a different time, which had the sort of student kitschiness about it, and it hadn't been a time when young mums were picking up their kids, it was the most ludicrous time it went out. And I was assured at the time, no, there's no downtime now. TV's changed. The fact that it's coming out in mid-July or whatever it was, August, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a downtime now. Everyone, there's stuff shared on different platforms. People are watching at different times. Those old, mantras about television times being, sort of reflecting how successful it was, don't count. And sure enough, it didn't get the young mums collecting their kids because they were doing that at the time. It didn't get the students because it went out in the summer holidays, and it sort of died a death. But so I was pretty fed up about it because we for a kickoff we did like 31-hour episodes, and it's as if it never happened because so many people don't even know it existed.
Yeah, it's so strange that
it's really odd. I think it's because it's just the time it went out. But there were bits of it I was very proud of, and I thought were really funny improvised bits. Other bits were terrible.
What was it like interacting with Noel Edmands, but as a character?
Well, great. I mean, he's very positive. Someone for my age, I'm happy to say I've worked with him and Steve Wright quite a lot, and my absolute heroes from my childhood, really. I mean, gods. Young people watching this now won't realise, but they were household names, absolutely part of the fabric of British culture. Yeah. And it's wasted on the kids now, but if I'm there with Steve Wright, who I see every now and then, not so much now, but I used to do Barry on his show quite a lot, I'd be thinking, my God, that's Steve Wright. I'm so delighted. And occasionally I'll speak to Steve Wright. It still gives me the biggest thrill. And the same with Noel Edmands. He phones me up every now and then and does a gotcha, Noel. He did one on Father's Day. What was that, a couple of weeks ago? I was walking the dog and he'll do I'm thrilled by that. It's absolutely thrilling.
Yeah.
And he was very positive and very, very nice. And there's a reason people like Noel have been in the business for so long, because he's a consummate professional and he knows how stuff works, and he's a very good presenter and he's a nice guy, and so they're all great.
It's like you say with Noel Edmands is there is that kind of people think what they think about him, but like you say, I remember Noel's house party on a Saturday night when I was growing up was like the biggest thing. And watching back some of those gotchas, as corny as they are, there's some really funny moments in there.
But I think, tastes change, don't they? Tastes change. What can you do? That, you might hit your mark at a certain time. Look, Matt Lucas and Dave Walliams suddenly are slightly reviled about this kind of race thing. It doesn't seem that long ago to me that they were absolutely the peak of their success. And then I saw last week David Walliams is starting to be slagged off for his books. And you kind of think it's quite brutal, isn't it? That 1 minute you're absolutely top of the tree, and just because tastes change slightly, you have to be rigid. It's such a British thing. Yeah, crap. Reduce it all. I can't stand that. I think maybe in America they're a bit more forgiving and they kind of get it. But over here, it's like, how dare you try and get above your station? Yeah, ridiculous.
And then you do a lot of work with Ian Lee, phoning into his different radio stations as a whole host of characters.
Yes.
Is that just for fun, or is that as promotion, or what? Well, why do you do that? Essentially, I love that you do it, but
do you know? Honestly, like, I'm not comparing myself to Peter Cook, but he used to phone LBC as Sven, the Norwegian fisherman
from Swiss Cottage.
Yeah, which is just because it's an outlet for you to do your stuff, And I've always, this is me pulling on the heartstrings, but I've never exactly been like a lot of actors, silver spoon in their mouth, and it's sort of they glide through. They've got a trust fund to keep supporting them. I eke out any opportunity, and it might come across as a bit desperate, but my degree, I did a degree at Leicester. We had no resources. It was terrible degree in the 80s. So, I've always looked for any opportunity to just kind of ply my craft. And Ian is such a great foil for that. There's people I know like Dan Skinner and Ian Lee, and there's a few others who really understand the nature of improvisation.
Yeah.
We share a friend, Jack Kerwin. I'm sure he gets it. Absolutely. People who really understand what that kind of playful improvising comedy, or doesn't have to be comedy, understand how that works. And Ian is the past master of that. And so he's just great. And, he always encourages me to come on the show. And also, I've known him for years. We used to do the 11 o'clock show together years in the late 90s. I say together. He was in it. I did the odd appearance. So it's all partly for fun, but I'd be lying if I said Barry was just for fun. When I started doing Barry from Watford on Ian's show, I had this character based on all my Cockney relatives in my head.
And, I just wanted to try it out, you see. And I found somewhere to see Ian's show. And so I started doing it,
And so that was... So, I was sort of looking for an outlet for that one, but the others have just been, sometimes Ian and I, why don't we try this character?
Is that so that's fun for you then, the improvising as a character, like thinking on your feet of what the character would say and how the character would respond to that?
Think so, yeah. I mean, that's overblowing it, really. My characters would say anything that comes into my head. I would say, no, he wouldn't say that. They're mostly, it's all pretty puerile. I can't claim to be Oscar Wilde with any of it.
I mean, it always brings me joy whenever you hear Barry come into where Ian will bring Barry into a conversation.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's so much fun to listen to.
Well, I want to do more with Ian. He's got his new show on Twitch, and we've got a couple of plans. But as I said, in this sort of lockdown, it's not really lockdown now, but during this COVID period, my poor wife and kids, I've gone into absolute turbo to try and keep things, ticking over, and Zoom shows and writing. And I've got my third series of the podcast, Clinton Baptise podcast, coming out, and I might be writing a Clinton book. I've got so many things. I just think it's unfair to them if I then spend, the evenings. Okay, just a minute. I'm just going to arse about with Ian Lee for a while. So when everything calms down, I'd love to do more with Ian.
So I've taken up enough of your time as it is. So I'll leave you with this question, and it's a question I ask everyone.
Yes.
Some of the answers we've had so far are Steve Guttenberg, Ricky Gervais, Russell Brand, Robert Smith.
Yeah.
Who's the most famous person you've sent a text message to?
Who's the biggest prick in the world? Who is... No, I'm kidding. Who is the most famous person I've sent a text
message to?
It's a fantastic question. Fantastic question. The most famous person I've sent a text message to is probably... I don't know if he's famous. Okay, Justin Theroux, who he was with Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
And he's Louis' brother. And we did a pilot for HBO with Steve Coogan, 10 years ago or something. No, maybe it was 10 years ago. I've texted. Hold on, I want to beat that. I'm determined to beat that. I don't know. Rob Brydon's a friend of mine. I occasionally speak to him. Matt Lucas. Ricky Gervais I've exchanged texts with, probably. Oh, God, I really want to knock the socks off everyone. Here's an interesting one. I heard from Johnny Marr the other day.
Okay.
Johnny Marr wanted a request on one of these sort of video apps where you say hello to people, and I was doing Clinton, and he sent in a request for someone, and I went to town taking the piss out of Morrissey, and I just assumed it was a joke. Anyway, it turns out it was the real Johnny Marr who was asking for this thing. So that's sort of one. Hold on, I'm nearly there. Nearly there. Okay.
It's funny just to say that I spoke to Ian last week, and he updated his from Steve Guttenberg to Matt Lucas.
Right.
And I spoke to Matt Allwright from Rogue Traders.
Right.
And he said Johnny Marr.
God, isn't that amazing? Okay, this is my. Here you are. Here you are. I'm going to go with this because this thrills me. Right. Mark King from Level 42.
Okay.
And if you want to go more kitsch than that, up the road from me lives Lamal from Kajagoogoo. And they were a big band in the 80s. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to go for Mark King, Level 42. Old Thunder Thumbs, the bassist.
Excellent.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, Alex, is there anything that you want to plug while you've got the time?
I tell you what I want to plug. Yeah, it's that video messaging app.
Okay.
It's called Celeb VM. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy, everyone, to come on for a small fee just to help me as I'm now stony broke with no bloody work to give a little message to you. And if you wanted to do that, I mean, that's terrible. That's pleading for money.
That's fine.
But, if anyone wants to do that, I don't know. But really, Dan and I, Angelos and Barry, we do a show on Thursday nights, 10:30 on Zoom, and we always put out the address. Forget that Celeb VM thing. That seems like embarrassing. Zoom. Come and watch our show 10:30 on Thursday nights called The Nunite Show.
And you and Dan both post it on Twitter as Barry and Angelos, don't you?
We do.
People need the link.
Endlessly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Alex.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be asked. Really appreciate it.
You have to embarrass yourself, Mark.